Hi, and welcome to another episode of Casual Learning. I'm your host, John Bannan. What's the deal with nothingness? Nothingness. Well, when I'm talking about nothingness, I'm talking about the philosophical concept of nothingness, maybe as applied in science, such as cosmology or physics. It's an important concept, no doubt about it. So it pops up in philosophy and science, and it's important to understand what specifically it is. Uh, Not when somebody uses the word nothing or nothingness in a philosophical or scientific context, it can mean different things. It depends on who's the one using the word and what they think it means. So I'm going to try to explain to you what it really means. And if you hear the word being used, be careful, because the person who's using it may not really know what it means. There is an ancient, classical, philosophical truth, and I'm going to write it in Latin because that's how it first appeared. Ex nihilo nihil fit. What does this mean? This means out of nothing comes nothing. Seems like an obvious statement, but it's also a fundamental truth. Nothing has nothing to give. Therefore, from nothing, nothing can come. Another way of saying it is that something cannot come from nothing. It's the very definition of nothing. The absence of anything else. How can something come from that which doesn't have anything to offer? So this is the truth. Out of nothing comes nothing. Very important thing to understand. Now, you may hear some atheists or scientists on TV, maybe, or physicists or cosmologists claim that the universe came from nothing. Well, that's patently false. It's totally not true. And why they say that is because in their mind, they're equating nothing with actually something, but they don't understand this classical truth that out of nothing comes nothing. So when you say, when some TV cosmologist says the universe came from nothing, they're clearly not referring to the classical understanding of nothing. So what are they referring to? They shouldn't say that. It's wrong. It's confusing. But they do it nonetheless because it fits with their atheistic viewpoint that you don't need a God and everything can be created out of nothing. All right, that's their bias. That's why they use the word nothing, because it's biased towards their beliefs. But it's a wrong use of the word nothing. When they say that, they're really not referring to the classical understanding of nothing. What they're referring to is something. It's a material reality like empty space, outer space, or the quantum field, or the cosmos. Well, those are all things. That's actually something. It's not. It's totally wrong to call that nothing, because it's not nothing. It's something. It's a low density form of reality. The quantum field, for instance, or outer space. It's a very low density form of reality, but it's still something. It was created in the Big Bang. It can't be created if it was nothing. You can't create nothing. You can't turn something into nothing. It's a created. These are created things, so they are something. They're just a very low density form of something. And these guys are wrong in saying you can get the universe out of nothing. You can't. You can't. So whenever you hear that, understand they're lying to you. They're not using the word nothing the way it should be used with a classical understanding and definition. They're really referring to a low density form of reality. But that's tricky, and they confuse a lot of people and do a great disservice to a lot of people by claiming the universe can come from nothing. It can't. It just can't. You can't get out of nothing comes nothing. You can't get a universe out of nothing. Can't be done. You may also hear him, use the word vacuum, right? The universe came from this vacuum. And, a vacuum is an empty space, devoid of anything. Well, that's not really nothing either, because a space, a place, is itself something. It's created in the Big Bang. The Big Bang created space itself, or a place to put things. So even a vacuum is something. And a vacuum also, consists of the quantum field, which is also something. There's fields and particles popping out of those fields all the time, popping in and out of existence. That's something. Space, a vacuum, is something. It's not nothing in the classical sense of nothing. It's just not. So don't let these TV commentators confuse you. A vacuum is something. Now, let me get rid of this for a second. No, you know what? I'll leave it up. Now, in discussing God and God's role in creating the universe, a couple Latin phrases are important. One of them is this. Creatio ex nihilo. This means that God created the cosmos out of nothing. Now, it's important to understand that the creation out of nothing, this nothing here, doesn't mean that God used pre-existing, let's say, empty space and formed it into reality or a created world or universe. What this means is that the universe, a created reality, simply appeared from the state of non-existence, meaning out of nothing. So it's not that God's making something out of nothing. It's that something is appearing from nowhere. That's what this really means. So don't get confused and think God is molding reality out of some sort of nothing space or, vacuum or quantum field or something like that. That's not nothing. This means creation is simply appearing because God wills it to appear. And it appears out of nowhere, out of nothing. No place, no time, just it appears. That's what this means. nothing itself can't create something on its own. There is nothing in nothing that can do the creating. That should seem obvious, but you have to state these things because a lot of people are confusing people by saying the universe is created out of nothing, which is a lie. It's not true. So the classical understanding of nothing is what you should have, and that sort of nothing can't create anything on its own. It's got nothing to do with the creating. There's nothing in it. It doesn't exist. It's not even a place or a vacuum. It's nothing. So there's nothing there in nothing to do any creating. So something can't come from nothing. It's not possible. It's impossible. Now, the universe, the Big Bang, matter, energy, space-time, gravity, those sorts of things, what we call created material reality. You can classify these things and talk about them like you could say, well, the atoms or molecules or subatomic particles or quarks or photons or waves or gravitational waves or black holes. You can classify these things, call them things. But in essence, what are they made of? What are they really? What are these things made of? And the answer is, they don't appear to be made of anything. They're just fields of moving nothing. And from fields, you can get particles. Particles pop in and out of existence in fields all the time, and particles come from fields. So they appear to be fields of moving nothing. But nothing doesn't move. Nothing can't move. There's nothing in nothing that would allow it to move. It can't move on its own. It's impossible. So you have these fields of moving nothing, which is created material reality. But nothing can't move itself. It can't move on its own. So you need something to move it. And that's why you need a uncaused metaphysical reality we call God. God is the prime mover. God creates material reality out of nothing by moving these fields of nothing. He creates fields of moving nothing. That's what reality is, created reality is. He creates something from nothing by moving it. Movement is the key to any sort of material reality. Without movement, it doesn't exist. If things were completely still and unmoving forever, how would you know it was even there? You wouldn't. It wouldn't be there. It would cease to exist. So movement is really the key to having any sort of reality in created material reality. You have to move nothing in order to do it. And God is the one responsible for moving fields of nothing and thereby creating something, by creating that movement. That's what God does. God is the prime mover. So when we talk about creatio ex nihilo, what we're really talking about is the prime mover, is God creating these fields of moving nothing and thereby creating something out of that, by creating that movement. That's how God creates a material reality. Now, the whole universe itself is premised on the idea that you can't get something from nothing. All material creation is premised on this idea of ex nihilo nihil fit. Out of nothing comes nothing. Now, why is that the case? Well, in order for there to even be a reality, a material reality, you can't get something from nothing. Nothing itself can't create something on its own. Can't do it. So, where do you get something from? Right? Well, you can't get something from nothing. So where do you get it from? Well, you get something from something else. It's the only way you can get it. So the whole universe is premised on this idea that the only way you can get something, because you can't get something from nothing, is that you get something from something else. That's why we have a universe where things are constantly changing through time, because you're getting something from something else. So that something has to change into something else in order for something to exist at all. That's the only way you get something. You have to get something from something else. But that something else has to change, or it will cease to exist. It has to move, or it will cease to exist, which means it has to change. So you end up with something from something else in an ever-changing universe of time. That is the only way material creation can exist. So you're getting something from something else. That's the only way something in a material sense can be real, can exist. So our whole universe is geared towards that fundamental truth. That's why we have time. That's why things are always changing. Because if you didn't have time and things were always changing, material reality couldn't exist, because nothing can't create something on its own. So the whole universe attests to the truth of this classical statement. Out of nothing comes nothing. That's why you have to have something come from something else. That's why you have to have time. That's why you have to have change, constant change. Because there's no other way for something material to exist at all. So this classical statement is true. And the whole universe is premised on its truth. So when you hear these scientists or atheists claim that the universe comes from nothing, in defiance of this classical understanding of nothing, they're wrong. They're lying to you. That's not true. The whole universe implies that this statement is true. So these guys are lying to you. They're wrong. Don't get confused. You can't get a universe from nothing. You can get a universe from something else changing into something. But you can't get it from nothing. No way. Now, as I said earlier, you get something from something else through movement in time. However, you still need a prime mover. You still need God. Because nothing can't move. It can't. So you need a metaphysical reality, an uncaused metaphysical reality called God to move, to create fields of moving nothing. So even though you can't get something unless you have something else turns into something, you still need a prime mover to move these fields of moving nothing. Otherwise, you can't even get something to turn into, you can't even get something else to turn into something. That wouldn't even work. So you need a God, you need a prime mover, because nothing can't move itself. And then you need something else to create something, to get reality, or you can't have that because of this classical truth. Now, God is a prime mover, so God is creating fields of moving nothing, and He has to sustain that movement. If He stops that movement, material reality ceases to exist, because movement is essential to existence of material reality. That's called. There's no Latin word for that. It's called. Creatio continua. God continuously created. So God is also, not only does God create reality like the Big Bang, He creates these fields of moving nothing. He also has to sustain that creation, continue it moving, or it'll cease to exist. So this is continuous creation. God's sustaining creation. Otherwise it ceases to exist. So it's not a deal where God just creates the universe and that's it. Set it in, forget it. He only has to create it once. No, God has to continuously keep it moving, or it will cease to exist. So He's also creatio continua. So, I went over this concept of nothingness and the classical definition of what it means, that you can't get something from nothing. But there's a related concept that I want to go over, and I've used it in my other videos, especially the ones about the dichotomy of existence. And that's the concept of absolute nothingness. Absolute nothingness. Absolute nothingness is a hypothetical, theoretical, metaphysical concept. It means the absence of anything else that you could possibly name. It's not in absolute nothingness. So if you can name it, it's not in it. So things like God is not in absolute nothingness. Matter, energy, space-time, gravity, they're not in absolute nothingness. Spirits, no, it's not in absolute nothingness. There's no empty space, there's no vacuum, there's no place to put something. There is no minds, no consciousness, no universes, no humans, no spaceships, no, there's nothing. If you can name it, it's not in this. So this is devoid of anything. This is a theoretical concept, okay? It's an uncaused state because there's nothing that could cause this. What can cause that? What can cause absolute nothingness? There's nothing that can cause that. Such a theoretical metaphysical state would simply it would have to be the case, but it's not the case. So this will never never become the case. There's nothing that can cause this. This is an uncaused state. There's nothing that can create an uncaused state. And there's nothing that can uncreate an uncaused state. Because it's not created. You can't uncreate that which is not created. So there's no way to cause this. It could never, ever, ever be the case. Can't. You know, in my dichotomy of existence, I talk about two uncaused states. One being God, the other one being absolute nothingness. But the case happens to be that there is a God. God is an uncaused being, which means you can't destroy God. God can't even destroy God. You can't uncreate that which wasn't created. So God can't destroy himself. The only way you could get a state of absolute nothingness is if God destroyed himself. It's the only way you can do it. Because you'd have to get rid of the other uncaused side of the dichotomy. But you can't do that. It's impossible. Not even God can get rid of himself. So you can't destroy God. So, because God is not in absolute nothingness. I told you, if you can name it, it's not in this. So you have to get rid of God. And of course, if you got rid of God, you get rid of everything God created, because he has to sustain that, so it would cease to exist. So if you got rid of God, you could have absolute nothingness. But you can't get rid of God because he's uncaused. Even God cannot destroy himself. So absolute nothingness will never be the case. There's no way that this could ever happen. And it was never a possibility either. Because God is uncaused. God has been there always. So there was never a chance for this to ever be a possibility. It's just purely a theoretical concept, a theoretical uncaused state. But there's no way this will ever be the case. It can't be. It can never be the case. And it was never a possibility because there was always an uncaused God. Okay, but this is another a related concept in nothingness that I wanted to explain to you. So, you know, when I talk about God created the universe out of nothing, I'm not talking about absolute nothingness. Because if it was absolute nothingness, there wouldn't be a God. So God couldn't create something out of absolute nothingness because God wouldn't even be there. So this is not real. It's a theoretical, hypothetical, metaphysical concept. That's it. All right, so when I talk about God creating reality out of nothing, I'm not talking about absolute nothingness. I'm talking about God existing and creating fields of moving nothing, creating material reality, and it just appears. That's it. It's not being made out of nothing. It just appears. That's what I'm referring to. Now, in my other videos concerning the dichotomy of existence, I use the word existence. I had to slightly expand the meaning of the word existence to include the concept of absolute nothingness. Because there's no better word to describe absolute nothingness besides a state of existence. Technically, existence only refers to created things or God. Because what else is there, right? Well, there also happens to be this. But the common understanding of existence does not include absolute nothingness. But it's the best word I could come up with to use in describing this. There is no other word in the English language that makes more sense than to call this a state of existence. So I took some liberty and expanded the definition of existence just to include this hypothetical state, this hypothetical uncaused state of existence. All right, but technically, people might, harp on, well, this really isn't existence. Well, that's because your definition of existence doesn't include this concept, which you probably didn't even know about anyway. So, I had to take a little bit of liberty and expand that concept, what existence means. This idea of absolute nothingness is, it's not something that can coexist with our reality. It can't. They're mutually exclusive. Our reality, the universe, and God, that reality is mutually exclusive to this state of existence, this hypothetical state of existence. Mutually exclusive. You can't have both. So I'm not claiming that this is a real thing, that it exists in our reality. No, not at all. This is a hypothetical concept that can never be real. All right. So don't go looking for this anywhere, because you're not going to find it. All right. I want to make one last point about supposed experts like mathematicians and physicists and scientists and cosmologists that you may see on TV programs, or you might, see them on the internet. Be warned that mathematicians are usually talking about mathematical models. They may have theories which involve mathematical models that they've created or heard about. But mathematics is not the same as reality. So not all mathematical models exist in reality. They're just mathematical models. Now, some mathematical models do exist in reality, but a lot don't. So be very careful. Just because somebody's talking about something as if it's real, it may be that it's really just based on a mathematical model, and there hasn't been proof that the thing actually exists in reality. It may be logical, mathematically speaking, but that doesn't mean it's really out there, or it's the real truth about reality. A lot of the same thing goes with scientists. Scientists like to spout off about all sorts of theories, theoretical concepts, and some of these are based on mathematical models, but they don't tell you that these are just mathematical models, and there has been no proof that it's real, that it really exists. Just because somebody dreams up some sort of mathematical theory doesn't mean it's real. Not at all. But they may not tell you that. They may not warn you that, hey, by the way, this is just a mathematical model. Is it real or not? No one knows for sure. So whenever you hear, mathematicians and scientists talk, especially the atheistic ones, take it with a grain of salt. Understand that they may not be telling you the whole story, and they may not be mentioning the fact that this is just a mathematical model and it hasn't actually been proven to be true. And you may get suckered into believing what they say, and it sounds reasonable. And it's based on math, and it's based on scientific, understanding, and scientists have written this paper, but that doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean it's real. They got to prove that through scientific experiment. They've got to prove through repeated results and a scientific method that what they're claiming is actually real. That's what actually happens in reality. And chances are they haven't done that, but they didn't tell you that they hadn't done that, or it hasn't been done. So be very careful, very, very careful in listening to atheistic mathematicians or scientists. They're not telling you the whole truth. They're not. Rarely do they warn you that what they're saying may not be the real truth. So, don't ever let anyone ever convince you that God is not real. There are always counter arguments and flaws in the atheistic arguments, but you might have to go searching or researching for those counter arguments or those answers. The atheists, they won't tell you what the counter arguments are. They hope you never find them. But they're there. Trust me, they're there. You can, with diligence, searching, asking the right people, you'll find them. It may take you years to do it, but you'll find it. There's counter arguments. There's counter arguments to everything. So don't just take their word for it. Never take an atheist's word for anything. They're just trying to justify their own beliefs and hope that you believe them. But they're often spouting nonsense. However, if you're not familiar with the counter arguments, or you're not familiar with the flaws in what they're telling you, you could easily get fooled into believing that what they're telling you is true. Don't let that happen to you. I'm telling you, the answers are out there, and the counter arguments are out there. You're just going to have to find them. You're going to have to talk to the right people. You're going to have to search for them. Search on the internet or research. Read some books about it. You'll find them. They're there. Trust me. I know they are. Ask questions of, theists, or they can answer. Some of them can answer these questions for you and give you counter arguments, so that you'll understand the nonsense some atheist was trying to tell you. Because don't be their victim. Don't. Trust me. There's always counter arguments. Always. And the better argument is that God exists. Absolutely. I've been looking at this question for years now and arguing with atheists and theists. And I know all the arguments and the counter arguments. And trust me, the existence of God is a better argument. There's no doubt about it. And there's always flaws in the atheistic arguments. Always. Always. They won't tell you what the flaws are. But they're there. You may have to find them on your own, but they're there. Trust me. Okay? All right. I guess that's enough for now. If you like what you heard, please press the subscribe button. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below and I can address them in the comment section. Otherwise, until next time, take care, everybody.